Hello and welcome to another farming sim giants editor tutorial. Today we're going to have a look at how to export a hay, windrow, bale, shed, barn from one of the in-game maps. This will be Westbridge Hills, and then import that into a different map. So what we need to do first of all is go into our in-game map, and we find that, for me, it's on my C drive, so go into here and it's in my Steam library because I bought the game through Steam. You may find that it's in a different place if you bought it from Giants themselves. We go into our farming simulator folder, and then we go into data, and then what I want to do is go into maps, and Westbridge Hills is map 02. So we'll open this in Giants editor. Give that a second. And then what we're looking for is the hay, straw, grass, the windrow barn basically, which is over here. So what I want to do is basically highlight this, and I'm going to click the entire transform group in the cinnagraph so that it grabs everything that the barn has in, on and around it. This includes the flower pots and everything else. Keeps it all together so you know you've got it all, you don't end up with half a door missing or something silly like that. And it's pretty straightforward. You just basically now need to export that. So we'll just go into export selection with files. This is important. You need to make sure you click this so that you get all of the correct parts, the entirety of the barn and all of the textures, colors, etc, etc. So we'll just go export selection with files, and we'll put that on desktop. I need to create a new folder for that, so we'll just create a new folder and we'll call it barn. Keep it nice and simple. So if we open this up, we could call it American Barn 1 or 01, sorry, but you can call it whatever you want. Again, just to keep it simple, I'm going to call it barn windrow. And we'll save that, and then if we have a look on the desktop, here's my newly created folder with that inside. Now to get this to work with your straw, hay, and so forth, you need to actually copy those triggers over. Now this is where it gets a little trickier because there are actually two in here. You need to watch for this. If I click in the actual doorway there, you'll see that it actually clicks on the windrow trigger, and we will need this, so we'll go ahead and export that. Just made that up, that figure. If we go up again to our export selection with files, and I think what we'll do is we'll actually create a new folder for this so that it keeps it all separate, and we can then play around with it as we need to. Put it all in one folder, it can get all jumbled up and then be difficult to find if you're doing a lot of them. So we'll create a new folder, and I'm going to call this triggers. Actually what I will do is call that triggers windrow. Reason being because whatever map you may be importing it into, it may already have a folder called triggers. So you need to make sure that you find a folder, or find that you haven't created a folder that already exists, because you could overwrite something that you already have on the map and end up destroying something that's already there. So just, you know, Windows is pretty sensitive about these things. If you try and create a folder that's already there, it will warn you, just rename it to something else. So if we open this up, and I'm just going to call this bale windrow triggers. So I've created my i3D for this trigger. Now if we actually pull this trigger out and click in here again, we have another trigger, which is our bale destroy trigger. So when you come into this barn and you tip using your forage wagon, it will automatically hit the trigger that we just exported, and it will tip fine, and you'll get paid for whatever you're tipping in there. But if you bring in the bales without this bale destroy trigger, nothing will happen. It will just tip the bales into the barn and they'll just fling around in here because the collisions all mess up and all manner of speaking. So you need this to actually destroy the bale. Once the bale is destroyed, it then hits the other trigger and then becomes windrow and then activates and sells. So you're not actually selling your product through this destroy bale trigger or bale destroy trigger. This is just there to destroy the actual bale so that it can hit the other trigger to then sell the product. So this is the one you need when you're putting in your bales into this barn. And this will be for any barn, not just this one. So we're going to export this one as well. So we'll go File, Export with Selections, and we can put that in the same here. So we'll just call that bale destroy. Trigger. Call it whatever you want, really. It doesn't matter as long as you know what it is, where it is. You can call it anything. It's just a matter of identifying it later on. That's all. So now that we've got our barn and both of our triggers, we can actually come out of this map. Because it's an in-game map, I would recommend not to save it, because you will find that it might screw up something in the main game and you'll end up having to reinstall Farming Simulator 15, possibly, don't know, but click no just to be safe. So now that we've done that, we can actually close this down, and we've now got on our desktop our barn and our triggers. So what we need to do now is obviously import that into a different map. This is the whole idea of this video, showing you how to export it from an in-game map and then put it into a different map, that you may be creating yourself or that you may be editing for your own personal use, because you find that it either hasn't got one on the map that you're playing on, or you feel that the one that's on there isn't to your liking and you prefer this one from Westbridge Hills. Whatever your reasoning, hopefully this will help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use Court Farms just because it's easy. I've got it here and I've been playing around with it, so we're going to open this up. So I'll open this up in Giants Editor, and again give it a little while to open it up in Giants Editor, and we'll make that a little bit bigger. This is unedited. I haven't changed anything on this map whatsoever. I have a different version of this which I have played around with, but this one is completely unedited as you would download it from wherever website you get it from. So what I'm going to do is just find a place that I feel comfortable putting this particular barn. Now I've already had a bit of a play around, to be honest, and I found that this would be a really nice place to put it. So what I'm going to actually do is delete this little house here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in our barn and then our triggers. But before I can actually do that, what I need to do is place these newly created folders within my map folder. Now when you actually first open the folder, you'll come to this main folder here, and I would recommend not to put it in here. It needs to go in the subfolder with your actual map i3D. Once you've got it in here, you can put it wherever you want. So I would go into models and then copy those over, so it keeps everything in the same place, and it doesn't clutter up anything in here too much. So we'll just go over here and I'm going to copy them, then come over here and just paste them in, and you can see I've got them now in that folder. So now that they're in there, I can then go back into my Giants Editor session, and I can then go into import, and what we're going to do is bring in the barn first. So I'll go back to my desktop, go into my Court Farms map, into my map folder, into models, and we'll go into the barn folder. This is the one that we created. So if we open that up, you can see that everything is there. So I'll just double click on the i3D and it will bring it in to the map, and it's over there. But I want to put it over here. Obviously I could go over there and click and drag and all the rest of it, but what I'm going to do is go over to here into the edit menu, and you've got a thing called interactive placement. You can use the shortcut key, which is Control B, but we're just going to use this. So we'll click on that, and then I can click anywhere I want to on the map and it will automatically bring it over and place it over here for me. Quite a nice feature. and then it's just a case of rotating it and moving it around, finessing it slightly to your liking. You won't spend too much time doing this on this tutorial because it's not really that important, because it's all going to be moved around again, I expect. So we'll just play around. That looks pretty good, and just get it somewhere where you like it, really. I tend to get it so that the bottom of the barn is just clipping through the ground there, so that when you know that when you put it into the actual game, you start the game up, you don't end up with a floating barn or floating objects or whatever you might be importing. And it's just, like I say, move it around to your liking wherever you think it looks good. So now that we've got our barn in there, what I'm going to do now is just save it, just so that it accepts those changes before we make any further changes. You can find sometimes with Giants Editor, especially if you're on a slightly lesser spec PC, that the more changes you make before you save it and update the actual map i3D, you can spend hours and hours doing all these different changes, only to find that then Giants Editor crashes on you, and that can be really annoying. So I would suggest, once you've actually imported an object like this particular barn, or one or two more things, then just click save, just for peace of mind, so that you haven't wasted an hour or two and have to do it all over again. So now that we've got that into here, now what I need to do is actually bring in my triggers. So I'm going to go back into File and then Import, go back to my models and find my created triggers windrow, and doesn't really matter which one you bring in first. I would probably suggest to do the bale destroy trigger. So if we bring that in and then go back into our interactive placement, and we'll bring it over here, and again this is just a case of maneuvering it around to wherever you feel you need it to be. So we can put it, say there, that's fine. So now that we've actually got that into there, bring that down just a little bit, there we go. So we've got that into there, and you can see that in the user attributes, and you can open this window by going into window and then user attributes, it will show you the onCreate bale destroy trigger. This is what actually destroys the triggers once you put them into this box, this trigger here. It will then take that bale and basically turn it into a windrow. That's what it does. So we've got that into there, and what we can do is take a note of our translate XYZ axes, and we can then, when we import our new trigger for the windrow, we can just basically use these same XYZ axes to put it in exactly the same place. So we'll do that now. So if we go into File and then Import, and we'll bring in our bale windrow triggers, and we can bring it over a bit closer, so we'll just do the same again. You can just do it manually, to be fair, it's just as easy, but if you wanted to get it somewhere the same as what this one was. Now this trigger is slightly smaller, as you can see, so they may not line up perfectly, but if you use these, you will find that you'll get it closer. You'll get it as close as you can. You may find that just using one or two of them will work best. But I'm just going to drag it into place and get it roughly where I want it. You may find that you need to rotate it and move it around a bit, just so it fills the whole doorway, so you're not going to miss any. You know you actually are going to hit the trigger. And there we go. So yeah, that's fine. So now that we've actually got all of our triggers into the barn here, We're pretty much done with that. You can leave them exactly where they are at the bottom of the cinnagraph here. It's not a problem. If you wish to maneuver them around, you might want to add them to one of the main transform groups so it becomes part of the farm, or however you feel you want to do it. That's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to leave them where they are for now. Yeah. So now that we've actually got that into here, what I'm going to do is have a bit of a play around on the map itself, get some straw and get some bales, and we'll then show you that it all works. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, so we're now in the map, in the game, and I've actually placed down some straw on the ground, which I am windrowing. I just wanted to show you this so that you can see I am having to actually do this manually, and that there's no jiggery pokery going on behind the scenes or anything like that. So yeah, once I've actually done this and got some bales, I will come back and then we can test our triggers in our newly placed barn. So I shall see you shortly. Okay, and we're back, and what I've done is I've windrowed the straw and collected some in a forage wagon, got some round bales on the in-game automatic bale picker-upper thingy, and I've also got one of the Fleagle automatic bale picker-upper trailers, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, now it's just a case of testing it out. So we'll use the forage wagon first of all. So if I just reverse this up to the barn, and we're just going to double check that the tip trigger works for your standard windrow. Now obviously this is just straw, but it should work fine for your grass, dry grass or hay, whatever you want to call it, and everything else. So we'll get that up. As you can see, it's quite close to the barn before the trigger comes up, so you may need to adjust that slightly, bring it out a little bit so that it doesn't have to come quite so close. Entirely up to you, that's your preference, however you want to do it. Or you could adjust the barn slightly so that it would the trailer would fit more into the opening there. However you want to do it, it's a matter of getting it to work first, and then you can move stuff around to get it exactly how you like it. But it does work, so we'll just show that now by pressing Q, and you can see it's tipping perfectly fine. You can see my money is increasing in the top here. I've actually added some money in just so that I could buy all of these objects, these parts of machinery, to test this out. That's the reason why I've got so much money, that's all. So as you can see, that does work, and if we pull away, we'll then grab one of the others. So if we jump into the truck here, and we'll just reverse this up and show you that the square bales do work, and obviously this is a mod, so we can test that it does work with a mod perfectly fine as well as the in-game stuff. So we'll just reverse up here and get it a bit lined up. We'll just dump those bales off, and there we go, they've gone. And as you can see here, £70 per bale. I'm actually using the bale extension mod, so you may find that you'll get more for the bale or less depending on whether you're using it or not. So there's the square bales all working fine. That off, and then we'll jump into the other tractor here, and we'll just show you that the round bales are accepted as well. This up to the door here, and we'll tip these up. There we go, gone. £70 again for those, that's fine. As you can see, everything there is working as intended. Like I say, you may need to play around with the triggers slightly to move them out, move them back, however you feel you want to adjust them that best suits you. So there we are. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that helps. Any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much. Bye for now.